So, what does it really take to plan and pull off a secret military mission to capture the leader of another country? Today, we're going to tear apart a fictional mission, Operation Absolute Resolve, to get a handle on the strategy, the soldiers, and the massive stakes behind this kind of modern warfare. Let's get right into it. It all starts here. January 3rd, 2026, before dawn in Caracas, Venezuela. Just a date and a place, right? Well, this date and place would soon be all over the news, marking the flashpoint after years and years of rising tension. And boom, there's the headline. This fictional report from Task and Purpose drops us right in the thick of it. Helicopters, a capital city, a capture, it just raises a ton of questions. But the biggest one has to be, how on earth did it get to this point? What happened that led to U.S. operators landing in Caracas? Okay, so to understand the mission, you gotta understand the target. For years, Nicolas Maduro was the guy at the center of a massive crisis in Venezuela. But for the U.S. government, their focus had narrowed to some very, very specific allegations. Yeah, this was not a sudden move. I mean, look at the timeline. This was a slow burn, for sure. It starts with diplomatic moves back in 2018. Then in 2020, it gets serious. The Department of Justice formally indicts him. And then the pressure really ramps up in 2025 with a huge reward, which basically sets the stage for what happens in 2026. Now, what's so important to get here are the details of these charges. We're not talking about political disagreements. These are criminal charges filed in a U.S. court. The big one, narco-terrorism conspiracy, basically alleges a plan to use drugs as a weapon against the United States. These charges are what legally shifted the view of Maduro from just a political rival to, in the eyes of the U.S., the head of a criminal organization. And if you want to know how serious the U.S. was, well, this number says it all. $50 million. That kind of reward puts a target on the same level as the world's most wanted terrorists and cartel kingpins. It's a massive signal that from Washington's point of view, every option, including a snatch and grab, was officially on the table. So, if you're going to launch a mission this risky, this sensitive, who do you even call? Well, you call one of the most secret, most elite units in the entire U.S. military. You call Delta Force. So here's the official textbook definition. They're part of JSOC, the Joint Special Operations Command. Think of them as the military scalpel, used for the most critical, high-stakes jobs. They live in the shadows and go after the highest of high-value targets. But, a definition like this really only tells you a fraction of the story. To really get a feel for the kind of person who does this job, you have to hear stories like this one. This is from a real account of an operator in Lebanon. He gets shot, escapes, and literally stitches his own wound up in a hotel room so he can keep going with the mission. I mean, that is an unbelievable level of toughness and dedication. That's the caliber of person we're talking about here. And the unit's whole DNA, its philosophy, it comes from the best. The founder, Colonel Charles Beckwith. He was on an exchange with the British SAS, and he built Delta in their image, with that same insane selection process and operational freedom. Right from the very beginning, Delta was built to be completely different from the regular army. And that difference is everything. These guys are given incredible freedom to make their own calls on the ground. They often don't have strict grooming standards, not to be lazy, but so they can blend in with regular people. They are absolute masters of spycraft, and they plan and rehearse every tiny detail of a mission over and over again. It's all designed for one thing: success in places they're not supposed to be. Now, as crazy as Operation Absolute Resolve sounds, you have to understand it didn't just come out of nowhere. It actually fits a pattern, a long history of similar high-stakes missions. So if you want to understand the playbook for this raid, you gotta look at the ones that came before. Okay, check this out. On the left, we've got our fictional mission, and on the right, a very, very real one. Back in 2008, JSOC helicopters flew a raid into Syria, in broad daylight, to take out a top al-Qaeda guy. The similarities are just striking. Cross-border, by helicopter, against a high-value target in a hostile country. The playbook for our fictional mission is pulled straight from real life. And that playbook goes back decades. Just look at this list. From rescuing a hostage in Panama in '89, to the famous Black Hawk Down incident, hunting a warlord's guys in '93, to actually capturing Saddam Hussein in 2003, and even their role in the Bin Laden raid. You can see a clear, unbroken line of missions that go after the very top enemy leader. All right, so we've covered the why, the indictment, and the who, Delta Force. But let's zoom out.
What's the big picture thinking here? What's the strategy that says sending in special operators is the right move?
This quote from former Secretary of State George Shultz really gets to the core of it. It's all about credibility. The whole strategy is based on the idea that if you say something is unacceptable, like, say, narcoterrorism, but then you do nothing about it, your words become meaningless. You lose respect on the world stage. And that's not just a gut feeling, it's a strategic theory. This policy paper from JINSA makes the case that adversaries don't really change their behavior because of talks or sanctions alone. What really gets their attention is when they believe you are genuinely willing to use military force. It's that credible threat that makes them think twice. So how do you put that theory into practice? Well, it breaks down into this three-step playbook called maximum pressure. Step 1, your military has to be ready to go, which makes the threat real. Step 2, you get all your other pressures ready, economic, diplomatic, before you even sit down to talk. And step 3 is the big one. You don't back off that pressure just because you start negotiating. The goal is to always negotiate from a position of absolute strength. So let's pull all this together. We've seen how a legal indictment can build the case for a military raid, how an elite unit like Delta Force is the specialized tool to get it done, and how it all fits into a bigger strategy about using credible force. Our fictional raid, Operation Absolute Resolve, is basically the perfect example of this entire framework in action. It's this idea of a clean, surgical strike to solve a messy problem. But it leaves us with this huge, lingering question. When you use forces like these for decisive action, where do you draw the line between a solution and a massive escalation?